Welcome everyone to Live from Abuja, reaching you from Nigeria's capital city. On the show, we'll take you through major events in politics, entertainment, sports that shape the week in Nigeria and across the world. And of course, sit back, relax and enjoy the show. I am Ademola Lawrence. Indeed, an interesting week it has been, where President Bola Tinubu was in South Africa for the swearing in of President Cyril. And of course, let's begin by telling you that at this edition, that the 5th president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has been sworn in for his second term in office. President Bola Tinubu was one of the more than 18 heads of state that witnessed the inauguration. And of course, talking about that with me in the studio, we'll be looking at all of the things that happened in South Africa. Is, of course, the executive secretary of the anti-corruption network. I'm talking about Ebenezer Oyetaki. It's good to have you, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My pleasure.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for having me.
Exactly. If you look at some of the things that have happened over this course of this week, one of the major points, of course, is the swearing in of the second term of President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa. And if you look at what President Bola Tinubu has been doing, he's been trying his best to ensure to put Nigeria on the global space. How would you rate this in terms of what President Tinubu is trying to do?
Very well. The visit of the president to South Africa is very important because I remember vividly, long before now, why the South Africa was still under the apartheid regime. People like Nelson Mandela, they were looking forward to Nigeria, a Nigeria that will become a beacon of hope, a bulwark of liberty to the African continent. The importance of South Africa and Nigeria being one of the largest economies in Africa in terms of GDP, the importance of promoting bilateral relationship within those two countries, as well as other African nations, with Nigeria leading the front, cannot be overemphasized. It is within that context that we can domicile the presence of President Bola Tinubu in the swearing in of Mr. Ramaphosa. Now, also, you can also remember that the President of South Africa paid a visit to him in his hotel. That underscores the importance, the attributes to the role Nigeria has to play in torchlighting the front of African development and constructive engagement. You know,
let's talk about that visit, because after the swearing in, of course, the both presidents were met, and of course it was a bilateral relations that was actually discussed. If you look at it, looking at how Nigeria and South Africa has been doing over the years, and how African, for example, the African trade has been doing over the years. What do you think these two men should be looking at in a larger space where you have over 53 countries who can do business with each other? But that is not really happening. If I have to get to Rwanda, I have to get, South Africa, for example, I have to get a visa. How do we begin to navigate all of this to having an Africa where it's beyond borders?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And over time, I think more than a decade, I have been working towards the promotions of intra-African trade. I also led the front of negotiations for intra-Africa and Arab states trades, because about 75% of Arab people lives in the continent of Africa, and Egypt being the largest country in Arab world and the rest of it. It is very important that Africans should deal with themselves in terms of comparative advantages in areas of productivity. If Nigeria knows where South Africa is better than us, we exploit it to our advantage. Okay. And if South Africa knows where Nigeria is having a productive advantage, they also exploit it. Vis-a-vis, we do this all over Africa. We trade among ourselves, building our own internal market as a shock absorber to the flux in international trade and the rest of it. And I think that is the way to go. I have also had opportunity of gathering some African ambassadors and spoke to them about this necessity. It is the way to go if we must create an emancipated Africa that the people like Nelson Mandela had been envisioning that Nigeria will lead its front of engagement.
So there's also the part, where the government also needs to play. Now President Tinubu is saying that, let's come down to Nigeria. President Tinubu is telling Nigerians, the citizens, endure for a while. The prosperity will come, our policies will work. But the people on the other side, you're not seeing what the government is doing in terms of trying to, if you say endure, what are you doing? What are you doing on your own part to also endure, to also say we should endure? So there is no balance. Some say there's no balance on the side of government. How do you think we need to do this? And what's your take on that specifically?
The first thing I would have expected this government to do after taking some courageous step like ending the subsidy, which has inflicted much hardship on Nigeria, the first thing I expected them to do is a drastic and revolutionary cut in the cost of governance. Till tomorrow, Nigeria is still running one of the most costliest governance systems in the world, whereby you have a country like the United States with over 20 trillion GDP. The senator's take-home is relatively about $75,000 per annum. And here in Nigeria, both from the emolument and all of them put together, a senator is receiving approximately 2,132,000. Why not exit the 2 million and leave them with 132,000 when we know that we are operating a miserable GDP of 450 billion? Until we are able to focus on nation building, engage in productivity that will promote the value of Nigeria economy to over 1 trillion. That is one thing that made me to vote for President Bola Tinubu. I listened to him saying that within some period of times, I will develop Nigeria economy to, even through agriculture, to overtake the 1 trillion mark. Brazil, that started with us, they are parading the same populations with us relatively. Their economy is over 1 trillion and raising towards 2 trillion and that kind of a thing. So Nigerians have no reasons to be in the kind of hardship they are experiencing today. Russia has been prosecuting war for the past 3 years. Russia's economy just overtook both Japan and Germany to become the fourth world largest in the terms of what you call it, purchasing power parity. Even
Israel is fighting war and their economy is booming.
So what is our explanation? We should engage the land. I was listening to the Ghanaian president. He went to this peace initiative conference in Switzerland, and he was saying that because of the invasions of of Ukraine by Russia, that African continent is suffering the most because food cost and the rest of it. Then I was ashamed of African leaders and things of that nature.
Okay, so
we should do the right thing.
Yes, and it is very important that the government do the right thing. If Russia and Israel were fighting war, their economy is still booming. There's a lot to call for.
Exactly.
Indeed. Well, on the last note, this issue of minimum wage cannot be overemphasized. Many have been saying, okay, they need to put a peg on this. It's been a discussion that has been long for over a year. Labour and the government is now looking like Labour and government are, they are just in a room. Nobody is ready to open the door and say, okay, we have finally settled. But with the present economic realities, then let me just ask you, what is an ideal minimum wage in your own opinion?
I laughed. Look at this book, Nigeria, a Giant in Search of Her Destiny. This is my work. Now, you see, nation building is not magic. It can never come through prayers. We cannot be operating in a nation that will raise people's hope and will repudiate the hope. which those in government, until they put themselves in the shoes of the common people, we will be having the kind of, misnavigations economically that we have been experiencing. What I am saying is that when Nigerians were collecting 5,000 minimum wage, and it moved from there up to 30,000 minimum wage, which some governors could not even pay until now that we started another agitation for minimum wage. At the time of 30,000 minimum wage, you can buy a bag of rice for 15,000 naira. You can buy a bag of rice for 8,000 naira, 10,000 naira. But today you can buy a bag of rice for 85,000 naira. That man who wants to buy a bag of rice for 85,000 naira has school fees to pay, have children to feed, have wives, and that kind of a thing. So when you put all of this together, our government, the people in government should not be behaving like a ghost, as if they don't patronize the same market with the people. But our economy may not be able to finance the demand of labor. 450,000 megawatt, what do you call it? 450,000 naira minimum wage, or even if you bring it to 100 or 200, many governors will cry they cannot pay because we have not been able to create the big cake that can absorb this. What we should focus on is developing the economy. I also have issues with Nigerian Labour Congress and the labor unions in the areas of their methodology of agitations. You saw that a country and a market potentials of over 220 million people is being powered by miserable 5,000 megawatts of electricity. Labour do not protest over 15 years ago, over 20 years ago, that we need more than 25,000 to 40,000 to 50,000 megawatts. Labour should be able to protest about those things. Then you saw that the refineries, we are an oil-producing country, a large one for that matter. The entire refinery ran aground. Labour did not give governments incessantly behind that, look, if you don't get refineries to work and that kind of a thing, no more importation for so period. This is the way the Labour should go, because if you protest for increase in salary and the president even approved 200,000 today, the inflation will roll over the board.
Yes.
So we should not be engaging nation building in the context of gross misplacement of priorities. Thank you very much.
I can see the passion at which you're talking about all of this. It is very important that the Nigerian government and, of course, the Labour are able to put a peg on the national minimum wage. Thank you very much, Mr. Ebenezer Oyetake, of course, the Executive Secretary of the Anti-Corruption Network. Thank you very much. We'll now go to the report of the swearing in of the President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa.
President Bola Tinubu attended this presidential inauguration not only as the leader of Africa's most populous country or the chairman of the Economic Community of West African States, but as the president of a country that played a significant role in liberating South Africa from the apartheid regime in June 1991, before the multiracial election in 1994. The Republic of South Africa returns to the Union Building for the inauguration of Cyril Ramaphosa for a second term in office.
So help me God.
The same place Nelson Mandela took the oath of office 30 years ago. The Rainbow Nation is also celebrating 3 decades of unbroken democracy.
Sincerely promise.
Winning re-election for Cyril Ramaphosa was not a walk in the park. The 71-year-old was re-elected by fellow MPs with 283 votes, seeing off a surprise challenge by Julius Malema, the firebrand leader of the radical left-wing Economic Freedom Fighters, whose candidacy gained 44 votes. Cyril Ramaphosa's party, the African National Congress, failed to secure a majority in parliament during last month's election. The ANC subsequently made a deal with its longtime rival, Democratic Alliance, and other parties to form a coalition government. President Ramaphosa admits that unless the government addresses deep inequalities, the country could become unstable.
In this moment, we must choose to move forward, to close the distances between South Africans and to build a more equal society, to translate the promise of our Constitution and the vision of the Freedom Charter into a reality for all.
The re-elected president of South Africa also acknowledged the voices and messages of his people through the ballots and says their will be done through greater dedication to democratic renewal for better social and economic gains.
The people of South Africa have stressed that they are impatient with political bickering and the endless blame game amongst politicians and political parties.
The inauguration was also a display of military might as the army rededicated themselves to protecting the nation and its democracy. For Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu, beyond traveling to Pretoria, he will also explore prospects and opportunities in strengthening trade ties and improving bilateral relations. Femi Akonde.
Now let's move to Rivers State, where the new caretaker chairpersons of Ikore local government area of Rivers State, Darlington Hodgie, says he has been unable to assume office since inauguration on Wednesday. Mr. Hodgie said the police prevented him from entering the local government secretariat. The police took over the secretariat of the 23 local government areas in the state after deadly clashes erupted on Tuesday in the wake of expiration of the 3-year tenure of the council's officials on Monday. According to Mr. Hodgie, the police barricades remains at the local government secretariats across the state even after Governor Simi Afubara swearing in of the new caretaker committees in Port Harcourt, the state capital. And a quick twist against the Court of Appeal in Abuja reserved judgment in the appeal filed by former Speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Martin Mahuele, and the 24 others against the Speaker, Victor Oko Jumbo, and 5 others. Interesting conversations we'll be having. Rivers State have actually be on the radar, in the news, and the last 1 month on more. And joining us live in the studio to talk more on these and other happenings in Rivers State is a member representing Ediato North-East and North-South Federal Constituency of Imo State in the House of Representatives, Ikenga Ugochinyere. Thanks for joining us, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I think these conversations cannot be overemphasized. We look at what is happening in Rivers State. Let's begin with what the APC man said. Felix Moka, what do you mean when when he said that the PDP chided for alleging that the APC was plotting to forcibly take over from Rivers State government? What's your opinion about that? Let me first start from there.
It's very simple. Not just take, overthrow, capture, destroy, hijack, whatever it is. They use kind words in describing what they want to do. This thing is very simple. You belong to People's Democratic Party for whatever political purpose, and we should be bold. And one thing I don't like in political conversation is people don't want to look at things and say it the way it is. This problem is very simple. The FCT minister helped Fubara to be elected as governor. That is allowed in democracy. And he said that he was not doing it for anything personal. But if it turns out that you did it for personal reason, for quick purpose of hijacking power and continue third term in office, then that is illegal and not part of democracy. Then you have a governor that have decided to run by his oath of office. And then you don't like the way he's running government, and then you want to remove him instead of waiting for next election to produce a new candidate. That is the foundation of this fight. And then he wants to let everybody know he has the entire House of Assembly at his beck and call. And then the House of Assembly started all those crises. Look at the kind of things they did. Remember, there was a time they made the law that you cannot use a primary school venue for campaign. Suddenly they changed that law that you can use it. They changed a law on procurement. When they were in office, they were funding contracts almost 70%. You now change the law to say contractors cannot be funded up to 10-20% just to frustrate governance in that state. It didn't stop at that. You went as far as changing the local government law to the extent that the House of Assembly will appoint members of local government commissioners, swear them in. You went as far as elongating the tenure of local government because you feel, oh, if this local government chairman finish their tenure and go, the FCT minister will not have local government full soldiers again. So therefore, in order to keep them in office, you now say they can stay in office forever. So a lot of funny things that is unknown to democracy started happening, and those House of Assembly people were the ones doing it. And again, there's a clear issue of, at the time they left the party, you are aware, there was no division in our political party. They left. And then they swore to an oath at the Federal High Court that they left because they say PDP is trying to merge. Trying to merge, I don't understand what that language means. But they left. And then swore to affidavit by December 11, 2023 that they have left. The same people are turning back again to say, oh, we have not left, because they have realized that they have goofed and made a very big mistake. Now they are looking for legitimacy at all costs. The legitimacy is for what? So you can go and attempt to remove the governor. Now that is the cause of this commotion, and they moved them to APC, thinking that by going to APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu will give you people backing to ride into rivers with double barrel from two ends and take over the state at all costs. So these things were uncalled for. There's even nothing they are fighting for. There is nothing that they are fighting for. You have decamped, your seats have been declared vacant. If you are strong, recontest the election and be elected. And now this thing is bastardizing. The danger in all these things, the losers in all this thing, is the integrity of our judiciary. Because you see them going, obtaining all sorts of expert applications from different court, left, right, and center. It's debasing the judiciary, because somebody somewhere is trying to now use the judiciary as a way to hang on to power instead of following the democratic process. So this whole thing is a threat to our democracy, and it's very bad. And I think stakeholders need to step forward to say, hey, enough. It's not because it's about Fubara, and the right thing must be done on this matter.
You know, so I wanted to also let us look at, if you look at what's happening in River State, you as a parliamentarian, look at what the River State House of Assembly, of course, has done. Some have also been calling for the National Assembly to also intervene into this matter, to look at how they can be able to resolve it. Do you think that, this matter should have been resolved? Or how do you think we can resolve it? First, you as a lawyer, how do you think we need to approach that? You talked about the judiciary. Secondly, as a parliamentarian, how do you think all of these things need to be nipped in the bud?
When you talk about resolution, if somebody is asking you for your wife for a night, I wonder how you intend to resolve it, because there's nothing to resolve here. They need to respect boundaries. They need to respect rule of law. In the first place, nobody forced you to leave the People's Democratic Party. You left it for whatever political reasons you wanted to achieve, and you realize that the Constitution is very clear. There's nothing the National Assembly can do here, because the National Assembly made that law, that section 160 or thereabout, on the issue of cross-carpeting. And this law is for a purpose, it's for deepening democracy. People cannot just go and elect people and know for no just reason you keep junketing. They should have had a reason for doing this. So you moved. You should be proud of wherever you go. Stay there and then recontest the election if you want to. So there's nothing to resolve here. They have gone to All Progressive Congress, and the law is very clear. And their seats have been declared vacant when Eddie Sinehi was the speaker. That vote and proceeding is the legitimate instrument of Parliament. It's the working document of the Parliament. And the court have also declared positively on that document that this seat stands declared vacant. So whatever they are running up and down doing is just to debase the judiciary. And I will advise the Federal High Court and the Appeal Court, for the interest of our democracy, the way Nigerians are seeing judiciary, with all due respect, is not the best. And the country is at the verge of crisis. There's economic crisis. There is loss of confidence in the political leaders and the political process. Everything is turning, backwards. And then judiciary is now being put in a position where some people want them to be seen to have been taken over or bought over or doing things that is illegal. So because what are you trying to affirm? On one hand, you have sworn to an affidavit that you have left as of December 11, 2023. You want judiciary to now say the government is now legitimate and people can junket left, right, and center. No reasonable judiciary will do that. And because you want to get at Fubara at all costs, why are you looking? After all, they were the people who all supported them. So what is the problem? They had 80%. And my brother, let me say this, because when you say resolution, I will say, what did they have before and what are they losing now? Let us start from the beginning. You are fully aware that they were the one that proudly said on TV here that they bought form for everybody that sought for political office in Rivers State. Remember, so they produced the entire House of Assembly, they produced the entire House of Rep, they produced the senators, they produced the governors, they produced the local government chairmen, they produced all the commissioners, they produced a chairman of board, they produced chief of staff, they produced everything in that state. They awarded almost most of the contract before they left office. So if somebody had all these things, so the question is asked, what is it that Fubara did not do that led to this crisis? To me, it can only be somebody who is overbearing, autocratic, or even greedy. Because if you have all the commissioners, you had all the House of Assembly members, you had all the House of Rep, you had all the governors, you bought form for all of them, you funded them, you did them. So now that you had control of the state 90%, what could have led you to having crisis? So there's nothing to reconcile here, because possibly somebody wanted to continue to have a third term in office, and that is unknown to Democrats. And I think Rivers is too big for Rivers to be pocketed. Odili have ruled that state, respected himself as an elder statesman, despite all people did to him. He went home and allowed transition to continue. Omeha, the same thing. Rotimi Amechi, the same thing. So I don't understand why this should be an issue. It shouldn't be an issue, because the key actors in this, it's not their father that funded democracy.
So I think that when you say that all the governors in Rivers State have ruled and left the place with peace, if you remember, Governor Odili also had his own battle. Remember, Rotimi Amechi also had his own battle. So I think it's something that is synonymous to Rivers State. But let me just, there's a statement that you put out yesterday, which of course has to do with the Rivers State Reps Caucus, where you disown Honorable Dum Duko over attacks on G60, of course, on your person. Saying that Rivers Politics Caucus is proud of you. But this is where I'm going. You said that the Rivers State Caucus at the House of Assembly read with dismay in a statement purportedly issued by the member representing Gukana Federal Constituency, Honorable Diko, calling for the discipline of the coordinator of the G60 lawmakers at the Green Chamber, which is the person of you. While we won't stand against the popular phrase, everybody is entitled to his opinion, we refuse to collectively accede to the honorable self-serving stance, as he has never been elected by Rivers State Caucus to speak on behalf. What is exactly the grievances?
I don't know, because first of all, like I said yesterday, I do not want to dignify some people with a reply, because it looks like everybody now that wants to prove to the FCC minister that is working once. So
if you say you don't want to prove to people,
but let me land.
But there's a statement that was out yesterday.
Yes, let me now land. What led to that statement is that one of the factions issued a statement attacking me. But the matter had been handled in the sense that the chairman of the Rivers State House of Rep Caucus, Honorable Abiante, issued a statement clearly that he's the chairman of the caucus, and they disowned the person that issued the other statement, and that they didn't know him, and that they have confidence. I've appreciated my many years of battle in defense of democracy. So that statement was clearly put out yesterday by the Abiante Group. And the Abiante Group have great lawmakers like Boma, Goodhead has Honorable Anderson, has Honorable Monachi, has Honorable Merengwans. These are House of Representative members. So they have expressed and passed confidence vote on me and informed me that Rivers people and all of us of democracy are pleased with what I'm doing. So because of that, I will not want to dignify the attack with any reply, because the caucus of Rivers State in their statement and communication to me has informed me that they are the right people and they have confidence in me. But the point is that you say a lawmaker that have constitutional right to make law for every part of the country cannot commence on a political development that has great impact on democracy in the country. What kind of teaching is that? There's no law limiting me on what I should talk about. So what should I be talking about? Those that are talking about issues on your TV, are they from those locations? So I can't talk about insecurity in Zamfara, I can't talk about economic issues and so on and so forth. There is no provision for that in any known law. So saying that because I'm not, most people from Idata, we have almost over 50,000 Idata people living in Rivers. So why can you say I should not talk about even those areas that represent and have strong Idata traders and businessmen of high repute? So you can't stop me from commenting on democratic issues or issues that have impact, of effect. But for instance, what they're doing in Rivers and what is happening in Kano has the capacity of reenacting What happened in the 60s and 1983 when federal police and federal judiciaries were used by those at the federal center to try to overrun people at the state capital. It led to heavy constitutional crisis that led to military coup and collapse of democracy. So as lovers of democracy and constitutional governance, we'll be warning and say, don't do that, because what you are doing has the capacity to inflame the country. There's hunger in the land. Any protest that breaks out from any of this region can lead to total collapse of governance. So I have a duty to advise, to say, don't go this path, because we want democracy to survive.
I also want us to look at, the issue of how, Governor Fubara says there's peace in Rivers State. You remember when this matter started? The first point of call was when Governor Fubara said he wanted to renovate the House of Assembly, and there was a destruction as at the time. When the impeachment resurfaced back again, he said the same thing. So can we literally say that there's actually peace in Rivers State? Because if you look at it, with all the killings and the means that are going on, one would say probably it's just a political statement from the governor of the state.
Well, the last time the lawmakers in the GCC and friends of the GCC went to Rivers, very peaceful. We didn't even go with security. It was very peaceful. What is happening is that some people are trying to create the impression out there that there's insecurity. There's no insecurity. There's no killing there. What happened is that what led to this latest tension was very simple. Your tenure have finished as a local government chairman. 3-year tenure. The man allowed them, unlike when Wike was governor, immediately he came on board in 2015, he dissolved the elected local government chairman that was under Amaechi's government. But Fubara, despite the insult and the attack, allowed the constitutional timeline to play out. They finished their 3 years. He didn't, even when some of them were telling you, who born you well, I'll kill you, I'll bury you, the governor still allowed them to finish their 3-year tenure. Then at the midnight of your expiration, you now go to one 2-bedroom in Emo and come up with a law and said you have extended their tenure that they can remain in office. That's a constitutional coup. That's an act against democracy. It's not allowed in any decent society, because if you allow that to stand in Rivers, it means that the National Assembly can wake up one morning and extend the tenure of the president. The House of Assembly can also extend the tenure of a governor. And that was by a resolution. You now say these people cannot stay in office forever. There's no provision for that. So because they did that, the people of Rivers State trooped out on the morning of that expiration. Because they got information, they brought in magistrates, whether from neighboring states, to come and conduct a swearing in for these people that their tenure have expired. So the people kept vigilance and surrounded the local government headquarters and stopped that constitutional illegal act from happening. Is that what you call insecurity? They are the one that is looking for every opportunity to make Rivers look like that there is no security in Rivers, because they want to ensure the state is destabilized. Some of them also calling for, asking for state of emergency. There's no need for that. That call is baseless. If there's a place that needs state of emergency, it's even Nigeria, not Rivers, because Rivers is peaceful.
Let me ask you on this last note, what are the available powers of the governor on the extension of the local government?
The right thing have been done. There's no power here. The most important thing is that they have used this crisis to derail the electoral process that would have been ongoing now, amending law, changing law, removing people, appointing people inside their 2-bedroom in Emoha, where they say they run the House of Assembly of those sacked 27 lawmakers. Now that has created a constitutional lacuna, and then they moved on to extend the tenure, and the people of Rivers stopped them by ensuring they did not swear in those former chairmen into office. Now that has created a lacuna, but the state ECEC has announced that they are going to conduct the election. In the next 2 weeks, the process for the election will start. So the governor is committed towards conducting the election. He's not interested in anybody's tenure extension. They have gone, they are gone, election will hold, and elected chairman will emerge. In short, he's hurrying to ensure that that process is done immediately.
So if we look at it in all of this, the people of Rivers State are the ones that's going to feel the brunt of, all of this. What should be the way forward? Because the people of Rivers State must actually experience the dividends of democracy. We can't have all this fight, and the people suffer. Because in all of this, the people are the ones who get the brunt of it.
Well, the political disagreement of this nature that has desperation have a way of distracting governance. But it's not distracting governance in Rivers. This is almost less than 6 months since he took over completely. They have been able to continue the Trans-Carabari Highway. They are running the Omok Road, they are running the Ring Road, they are doing the General Hospital in Obiakpa, and so on and so forth. So governance is not being affected. In short, with the scorecard of 6 months, he has surpassed what was done in 2 years. But my advice is very simple, and my advice would be to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's always very simple, and that is, The people that are doing this is making it look like they are working for the president. They are just fighting for personal political survival. There is nothing in this for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So that's why
every politician fights for their political survival.
That's why I'm advising that he should call them, whether in Kano, whether in Rivers, that we are at a tipping point. There is serious insecurity in the land.
But there was a time the president called for a meeting.
And they breached it. So, and what I'm trying to say in the fact that if this thing goes out of control, the role police is playing, which is not acceptable, especially closing the council when there is acting chairman that should take over the council. This is unnecessary. There's no order forbidding them. But if you continue to do this and bring in the judiciary, bring in the police, this thing can lead to breakdown of law and order, and this thing can affect democracy. So call them to order. Let the constitutional democratic principle, run through. And I'm advising also both the CJM, the President of Court of Appeal, the Federal High, especially Federal High Court Abuja, stay away from this in times of Federal High Court or Appeal Court, seen granting expert order left, right, and center to be favoring people whose seats have been declared vacant. The whole country is watching to see whether our judiciary is really independent or answerable to certain people going by the judgment they will be delivering on this matter. Because all of us are watching it. So the only way out is to respect the rule of law, to respect constitutional governance, constitutional democracy. If your tenure has finished, your tenure has finished. Stop manipulating people. Allow the governor to deliver on his promise to reverse people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ikenga, for joining us on the show. The Rivers State, of course, everybody hopes, all Nigerians hopes that this can be put to, can be nip in the bud, where the people of Rivers State can actually enjoy the dividends of democracy. Now let's move to NDLEA. Chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, has justified the decision of the Anti-Narcotic Agency to go after the assets drug barons and traffickers as part of ongoing offensive action against illicit drugs and cartels. The NDLEA chief, represented by the secretary to the agency, Shedrack Haruna, said the action of the agency is strengthened by the forfeiture regime following the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2022. Let's share some of their activities.
The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and its partners kick off activities ahead of the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Reports have shown that Nigeria's drug prevalence rate is alarming, with a 15% rate almost tripling the global prevalence rate of 5.5%. The NDLEA is scaling up action on drug demand reduction as well as ramping up its crackdown on barons.
Our prosecution efforts have continued to achieve successes in courts, given the painstaking investigations and diligence in the prosecution of cases. Our watertight case preparations are unassailable. These have been further strengthened with our forfeiture regime with the passage of Proceeds of Crime Act. Apart from conviction, the assets of the convicts used as instrumentality of the crime or the proceeds derived from the crime will be forfeited to the federal government.
The theme for this year's World Drug Day, The Evidence is Clear, Invest in Prevention, indicates the enormity of the global drug problem.
Further projections show that by 2030, there will be a 40% increase in the use of drugs in Africa based on the population of young people. And this is extremely concerning if we consider that 2030 is only 6 years away.
The NDLEA and its partners believe that with sustained effort, they are right on track in tackling the problem. Sifon ACN, TVC News, Abuja.
Joining me in the studio to talk about is the NDLEA Secretary, Shedrack Haruna. Of course, he's live in the studio with me to shed more light on the agency's stance on the passage of the Proceeds of Crime Act 2022. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio.
Thank you very much.
I think we can't overemphasize this. The evidence is clear. Invest in prevention. The theme for this year suggests the drug problem is a big one. Should we be worried?
Well, I think if we continue the way the agency is working with the support of the government, which we are receiving now, then I don't think there's any cause for worry.
According to the to United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, approximately 14.4% of Nigerians aged 15 to 64 engage in drug use. This percentage is almost 3 times higher than the global drug use prevalence of 5.5%. How did we get here?
Well, I think it's something that was a survey that was conducted in 2018, and that survey is still the valid one because we've not done another one to measure the effort done so far. Yeah. But of course, it has been a sort of, if I may call it, neglect in the past, or something not action that is not being seen that people should be concerned with. And but now that that report came out, actually the government came out fully to see how they can stem the tide. And from 2001 till date, I think effort has been on the high side, seeing how to actually reduce the prevalence of drug use, reduce the prevalence of drugs on the street, and we're yet to measure that. But from what we have seen from our partners and from the snippets we got from international partners and embassies, it shows that the number of Nigerians who are in prisons abroad have reduced considerably for drug-related offenses. And that shows that, yes, from that period till now, there's a lot of effort being put in, and government is working hard to ensure that we don't have so many of these drugs on our road, on our street, and no drug traffickers is allowed to come in. And this effort, if it continues the way it's going, I believe that in the coming years, drug tides, or there'll be a huge reduction. But of course, that means concerted effort and sustained action as is currently being done. So we are yet to measure it because the measurement, the fund to measure it, which is to conduct the research, is quite huge. But we're pleading with partners to see how they can come in. The last one was done with the support of EU, and the government is also trying to make effort to see how they can conduct one. But like I have said, we're seeing the reduction, but of course there's still moved by so many people coming in. In fact, at a point, we felt that there should be declared, the issue of drug in Nigeria there should be an emergency.
A state of emergency.
A state of emergency to be declared because of the drug prevalence on the street, because of the huge cache of drugs found with bandits. And you see that this drug on the street is not just for youth, but if we're able to work together like we're doing currently with our partners and government is in support as it's doing, then certainly we'll reduce the drug on the street, we'll reduce banditry, we'll reduce terrorism, we'll reduce kidnappers and violent extremism as well as domestic violence.
You know, if you look at, you talked about the streets, you look at how commonly these use drugs are. You look at opioids, you look at cocaine, tobacco, all these stimulants.
Yes.
How do we get all of these things out of the street? Because it's really damaging, not just the youth. Some people, even you see older men, older people even using it to suppress depression.
Well, that's true. The impact or the effect of drug use on health cannot be overemphasized. Yeah. In fact, the impact is huge. Not just on health and safety, but also on the economy, as well as security. We have seen that drug is being used everywhere. But how do we get it out of the street? It's not just government alone. It's a whole society approach, which includes the media like you.
Of course.
We all have to work together. It's a common and shared responsibility. And when it becomes such a responsibility and a concern to the whole society, we should all come together to fight it. I'm just coming back from a walk against drugs, sponsored by MTN. That's where I'm coming from now. We try to educate the people to tell them the impact of drugs. And the whole of Abuja is going to be painted red and yellow this morning because we're on the street everywhere campaigning against drug use.
There's been campaign for legalization of cannabis, also known as marijuana in the country. What's the stance of NDLEA?
You see, NDLEA has no this thing on the issue because we are an agent of the government enforcing the law. Yeah. The extant law prohibits cannabis, the use of cannabis. So we have to enforce that. And government has not come out clearly, regardless of the debate going on, to say, oh, well, we want to change the law. The law as it stands today prohibits cannabis. Yeah. And we are enjoined to enforce that law and to ensure that the law is enforced to the hilt. And that's why we're still prosecuting them. But if the law changes tomorrow, then as an agency of the government, we have to obey the law because nobody is above the law.
Exactly.
But for now, the extant law is prohibition of cannabis.
All right. Thank you very much. It's really nice to have you in the studio, Mr. Aruna Shedrack.
Thank you.
Really, really nice.
Thank you.
And of course, we're still talking about joining yourself because it's to talk about the adequate data collection in Nigeria. It's Larry Yusuf, Mr. Larry Yusuf. Hello, Mr. Larry Yusuf. So we now talk about how data collection can be very, very important in Nigeria. It is an utmost that we cannot but overemphasize in Nigeria. And of course, it's going to be an interesting one. But first, let's go for this break. When we come back, we'll talk about data collection. So our next conversation will be on data collection in Nigeria. And joining me is Larry Yusuf, NIMC Director. Thank you for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's just move straight to the point because there's really no time. Nigeria is assumed to be a country without adequate data. That has been a conversation that's been since I've known what to become Nigeria. Even with the little we have, it seems very difficult to assess them. What's your reaction to this?
Well, we're all aware of the national identification number. That's the first step of trying to identify every resident in Nigeria. And the national identification number is an 11-digit unintelligent randomly generated number. And what that does is that it uniquely identifies individuals. So what are the components that identify individuals? First of all, it's your demographic information, whereby your name, your date of birth, and place of birth, those are things that do not change. Well, you can change your name, but you cannot change the date of birth and the place of birth. Right? And most importantly, in the biometrics, what are the biometrics? There are three modalities of biometrics. There's the face, there's the fingerprint, and there's the iris. In this case, with the National Identity Management Commission, we are using the two modalities. We are on the progress of upgrading and including the third modality, which is the iris. So that's what uniquely identifies individuals.
Data accuracy is very germane to any developing nation and, of course, for the development of any nation. How far is Nigeria in this?
I think we are doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. We started a little bit late. There are hiccups when we started. There were identity projects that started in the late 90s, okay? And those hit roadblocks because of privacy issues, okay? They were conceived with a foreign company who decided that they own the data. In this case, what we're doing now is Nigeria owns the data, okay? The data is domiciled in Nigeria, and the data is protected, is within our reach, is generated by Nigerians. All the applications and the components that drive collection of the data are done by Nigerians. Yes, so I think we're doing pretty well.
Nigeria came to the party very late in terms of data collection. What are the challenges you face, and how are you succumbing those challenges? Let me put it that way.
Well, before the incoming of the DG, the current DG, Engineer Abisoye Koka Odusete, we've been able to reach a milestone. But it is not just the data that you collect, it's the accuracy and the quality of the data. So that's the phase where we're in now. And I'm sure you must have seen making rounds in the media about data breach, about whatever. Nigerian data are secure and protected, okay? And data is of no use if it cannot be accessed. Yeah. So there are relationships, there are stakeholder agencies. We have the banks for financial inclusion. We have the same registration. Okay, we have pension, we have driver's license. So all these sister agencies who do functional identity role in the identity ecosystem are plugged into one foundational identity, which is the National Identification Database. So there are challenges, of course. There are funding issues. There are data privacy issues. Now with the President signing of the Data Protection Act, we are seeing more attention being driven towards compliance. There is the Nigerian Data Protection Commission also, who is actively involved in making sure that data protection officers are trained. There are data protection compliance agencies that need to be onboarded. So we are making some progress.
On the last note, seeking data is very difficult. I don't know how difficult it is for Nigeria, because, for example, I want to get an international passport. I'm already registered with NIMC is there. Why do the Immigration Service have to ask for my data again?
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. And in all fairness, immigration has been one of the great supporters of the identity project, because, again, we all rely on the same standard, which is the ICAO standard. Lately, if you do know, and I'm sure you are well-traveled, you cannot acquire a passport or renew one in Nigeria without having the national identification number. So that tells you the synergy, the harmonization, and trying to make sure that we have one foundational identity whereby you can go and update or identify yourself. Gone are the days whereby you can be Mr. AB somewhere and you are Mr. ABC in another place. Those days are gone. So we've seen these stakeholder agencies complying, the tax agencies, the driver license, the pension agency, the pension commission, and everything. They are plugging into the system. And also, the security agencies, as high as the Office of the National Security Advisors, have provided an umbrella to provide security about data breaches and data privacy policies. So we're getting somewhere.
Thank you very much, Mr. Larry Yusuf.
Thank you.
It's indeed a very interesting conversation to have with you. And that's Mr. Larry Yusuf, Director, IDD and NIMC. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Now we'll go to the headline news. The Special Advisor to Lagos State Governor on Health, Kemi Ogunyemi, says the number of recorded fatalities as a result of cholera outbreak in the state has risen to 21 following the last update, which reported 350 suspected cases and 15 fatalities. She also said the number of cholera cases has increased in the 401 across Lagos, with Lagos Island, Koshofe and Etiosa recording the highest numbers. And in Rivers State, Governor Fubara says the state is peaceful and safe despite the recent security concerns over the administration of local government areas. He made this remark during the visit to Omuma local government area, where 2 security operatives were killed. In the political clash, the governor was there to inspect the progress of work on the 14.6 Modu Ebiri Road project. And following the Federal High Court ruling, setting aside the steps taken in repealing the Kano Emirate Council law, the state government has ordered a deposed Emir Aminu Ado Bayero to vacate Nasarawa Mini Palace. At the press conference, the Kano State Attorney General Haruna Dideri emphasized the need for renovation of the facility, which is solely owned by the state government. And on the foreign scene, marathon rehearsals, informal consultation, campaign rallies, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are each preparing in their own unique way for their televised debate next Thursday. the first in the 2024 race for the White House between the bitter rivals. In less than 5 days to go, the Democratic president was set to head to Camp David, a mountainside retreat for U.S. leaders close to the capital, Washington City, on his attack lines and rebuttals. Few details have been released about the 81-year-old Democrat's preparation, except that his former chief of staff, Ron Klain, will be involved, and that one of the Biden's aides will play at the part of Trump's in-mock debates. And new tensions have emerged this week between President Joe Biden's administration and Benjamin Netanyahu over the Israeli premier's criticisms of U.S. weapons deliveries. Comments at the White House described as vexing and disappointing. The issue began when Netanyahu claimed in a video posted on social media earlier this week that the U.S. administration, Israel's main military backer, has been withholding weapons and ammunition from his country in recent years. Thank you very much, and that's our show for today. Join us next week as we bring you stories happening in politics, lifestyle, entertainment, and sports. My name is Ademola Lawrence. Have a very wonderful weekend. Bye for now.